Hi folks, for a number of years now I've been working with an app called Polynome. I've been using it as my main metronome and as a tool to work with difficult rhythms, polyrhythms, nested tuplets and things like that. And just recently I was asked to become an artist on their roster endorsing the app, and in return to give some ideas for usage, some of my feedback, some suggestions on how it could be improved. And I was delighted to accept. So in this video I'm going to show you how I use this app working on some really difficult material. I'm doing some composition work at the moment and encountering some really difficult rhythms as I try to practice them for performance. And I thought it would be a really good opportunity to demonstrate how I'm using this really powerful app to help me tackle some really difficult rhythms. So I'm going to show you a few of the basic features of the app specifically tuned to how I work with it with the rhythmic material. Hi folks, I'm here in the studio working on some material. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm currently working on some snare drum compositional material for a role I'm completing this year. And some of the rhythms that I am writing and trying to learn to play are very difficult rhythmically. And trying to figure it out with a more traditional metronome requires a lot of pen and paper and maths and working out to try and figure out where everything lines up. With Polynome and the ability to program in multiple layered rhythms, polyrhythms, tuplets, and a very customizable click allows me to have it running next to me as I practice it so that I can hear it and count it and internalize it in a really productive way. And there is no other piece of software out there, at least not in mobile format, that I'm aware of that comes anywhere close to that level of power. So I thought I would share with you how I'm doing it. So first of all, I'm going to show you the passage that I am learning to play, and then I'm going to show you how I'm actually utilizing the app. So let me show you the rhythm first of all. So this is the piece I'm working on called Iliad, and as the title suggests, it is based on groups of 9. Now the first thing to note is the rather unusual time signature is 18/16. Now that sounds scary until you realise that this is actually just a fancy way of saying there are 2 beats to the bar divided into groups of 9 16th notes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Bars 29 and 30, that mean looking bar with a 5 to 6 32nd note tuplet, a 7 to 5 16th note tuplet, and then at the end of the line a 6 to 4 16th note tuplet. Now it is imperative that we understand how the beats are divided. So as I say, within this time signature there are 2 beats to the bar, and each bar is divided into 9 16th notes. Now we can draw a line straight down the middle after this quarter note to divide the 2 beats. So beat 1 of the bar is to the left, and beat 2 of the bar is to the right. So these 2 figures here correspond to the first 9 16th notes, and these 2 figures here, which are actually all beamed together, correspond to the second 9 16th notes. Likewise in the second bar here, the first beat ends at the end of this beam group, and the second beat starts with this sextuplet here. The difficulty is that these tuplets happen over really odd positions. We divide our 9 into 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, but we can see very quickly we run into difficulty here, because we have 1, 2, the first 2 16th notes are easy enough, but then this 32nd note quintuplet begins on the 3rd 16th note and then carries on over 2 more 16th notes and ends with 4 16th notes to go. That's really complicated. That's really difficult to count. It sounds okay once you can play it up to tempo, but it's difficult to figure out. Likewise, this one is a lot more simple actually, despite it being a 7. These 7 16th notes occur in the space of where there would usually be 5. So 5 plus 4 equals 9. We can see the remaining 4 16th notes are thankfully pretty normal. Into the second bar, the first 4 16th notes are taken up by a rest, so that's okay. Then the remaining 5 16th notes are pretty straight. It's just a 5-stroke roll. First beat is very easy. Now this is where it gets a little bit more difficult again. We have a sextuplet here beginning on the second beat of the bar that takes 4 16th notes to complete. So this is 6 in the space of 4. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 16th notes to finish off, all within this 18/16 time signature.
So that's what we're dealing with, and as you can imagine, it's a real nightmare to try and work out if you don't have any tools to help you. You can see here I've got two sequences, an upper sequence and a lower sequence. These are just the metronome controls. These help with the volume of all aspects of the metronome. I'll come to those in a moment. But what we're interested in first of all is this first sequence here. So I've opened up the sequence menu. First of all, I've set my time signature. Now, you recall the actual figure is in 1816. I want to just focus down on that difficult first section. So I've set the bar to half that length, 9/16 notes. So I'm just focusing on the first group of 9/16 notes. I can then use the tools here to program in the individual rhythm. I won't go into that now because there are tutorials elsewhere, but I've used the notational tabs down here to program in the rhythm. So you can see I've got 2/16 notes, then the 5, and then that quarter note, all totaling 9/16 notes. Now the way the app has used it here, rather than thinking of it in terms of 5 30-second notes in the space of 6, it is thinking of it as 5/16 notes in the space of 3. It's the same rhythm. It produces the same tuplet. It's just a notational difference. Below that, I can decide what sounds I want this rhythm to play. Now I'm doing this all on the snare drum, so I've just chosen the snare sound. I'm not worried about the sticking at the moment because I'm playing the sticking based on the paper, but I've told it to play a snare drum stroke on every note. Now, down here, in the second sequence, I want to learn to count this in groups of 3. I'm feeling these 9s, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So in my second sequence here, I've just simply programmed in 3/16 notes corresponding to those groups of 3, because that's how I want to learn to count this. On the sound set, I can change the sounds that are available to me here, and there are lots and lots of sounds available. But the most useful one here, you may not be able to make it out on the camera, but down here it says voice 1 to 3. And what that means is a voice will count aloud the numbers 1 to 3 on the rhythm I have set. Now, if I just mute that first line, we can hear that.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
We can hear the app vocalizing the count. Okay, it sounds like a robotic voice, but it's close enough. And we can hear at the tempo I've set,
1, 2, 3, 1.
that's what I want to be learning to count, right? Now if I bring up the other line and mute the count, we'll hear just the figure on its own. There's that snare drum sound, and there's our 9/16 notes. Now of course, if I bring up both figures at the same time,
2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
we can hear those two figures next to each other, the actual figure I'm trying to play and the pulse that I'm learning to count aloud. What I've done here is create a playlist, if you can see here, bar 29 and bar 30. These are the figures we were just looking at on the music stand. I programmed them both in the same way, with the snare drum on the rhythm and the voice counting the pulse, and I can change the playlist settings to auto advance and loop both of these bars so it plays bars 29 and 30 back to back.
2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3.
And we can hear there's one repetition of both of those bars together. So now that I've got that in place, programmed in next to me, I've got the iPad here. I'm working on the pad so I can focus on the rhythms rather than worrying about volume and sound at the moment. I really want to focus on the rhythms first of all. I've got the music in front of me, the app on the side here set up on the playlist, and then it becomes a game of internalization. Because I can actually hear both the rhythm I'm trying to play and the pulse that I'm trying to count, I can do my best to mimic it and slowly, gradually, piece by piece, internalize those polyrhythms. And that's really what I'm trying to do here, because especially like the 7/5, it's mathematically so precise that trying to count it out over many counts of the resolution point is probably not practical. So being able to actually hear it and to copy it and to play it and to begin counting it aloud by following something that is actually producing the polyrhythm, I find is such a productive way to do this. I need to be comfortable as the performer knowing what that polyrhythm should sound like. So let's see what this all sounds like together. Hopefully you can hear both.
2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3,
1,
2,
2,
3, 1, 2.
second bar, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Ah! It's tricky. Very, very tricky. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3,
Not quite yet. So I realise it doesn't sound like much at the moment, but the fact that I can actually hear what that phrase is supposed to sound like, not only just played on the snare drum, but played against the pulse producing the polyrhythm itself, as I say, is absolutely invaluable to me. So for me, for my purposes, I'm not going to be performing this counting aloud the threes. I'm using that as a tool to help me internalise the rhythm. So if I listen to just the pulse, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's the pulse I'm going to be feeling 3 threes per beat. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, right? So I need to be able to hear these rhythmic figures in that context. And practicing as I was earlier, as I demonstrated with the actual polyrhythm talking to me, enables me to hear how those figures sound, so that when I come to practicing it in this method, which is the more musical approach, the holistic approach, I've got a better chance of learning how those figures fit in. So I'm going to play those passages a few times, and I'm probably actually going to have an easier time of it because I'm not trying to count this really difficult polyrhythm, I'm trying to hear the rhythmic figure in a broader context. So I can hear, I played the previous 2 bars and then led into bars 29 and 30. I can hear that I'm playing the septuplet too fast, right? Because I know those 2 accents that come out of that septuplet are on the upbeat of the 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I'm hitting them a 16th note early. Minute details of the bar that I understand from being able to practice in that polyrhythmic approach. Let me have another go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Too fast that time, the 7. The first time was good. Here we go. Good. Good. And there we go. So despite the tempo being roughly 50% of what I'm aiming for, I am somewhat consistently playing that figure in time. So if I bump the tempo a little bit now, my goal tempo is to feel these 2 beats of the bar at 60 BPM. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? Now,
just a moment ago I was at 30, so I was at half speed. So if I take this up to 45, 3/4 tempo, right? We're 75% tempo. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 2 2 3 1 2 3 2 2 1 2 3 2 2. That's how I'm feeling this pulse. Again, I'm going to find this easier now because I have less space to work with. I'm playing with the overall figure in mind. Yeah. Now, this is an interesting stage to arrive at because I am playing it consistently, but with some errors, mostly to do with that 7/5. And I'm finding I'm having to speed up just a little bit at the end of the 7 because I'm starting the 7 a little bit too slowly, and I'm not quite confident in how that 6 should sound in context. But you can start to see the shape of this figure forming at 75% tempo to the click. So that I've even got a chance of doing that because I was able to hear those two rhythms vocalized and practice along in the way I demonstrated earlier. Let me give that one more go, but I'm going to do it at 60 this time. So probably not got much of a chance, but not yet anyway, but I am starting to hear what these figures sound like. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Not quite. So the app is called Polynome. It's available on multiple platforms, and I would really suggest you check it out because it's really, really powerful and fantastic. And Joe is a great developer as well, and really open to comment and suggestions and help. So thanks very much for watching. I'm going to crack on with these polyrhythms and see if I can crack them. See you next time. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1